Hello and welcome back to another quick short tech video. My name is Mike and I want to show you today a really cool feature that exists within the Allegro multimeters. So we've all been in the situation where a user calls in and complains that the network is slow, or heck, even at home or on my cell phone. I'm often running network speed tests like speedtest.net or speedof.me to test my local bandwidth to see what, high level what the network looks like. And one of the problems with that, especially when troubleshooting a problem from a remote site or remote user, is that most network architectures today have split tunneling for their internet. So what that typically means is that when I run a speed test out to speedtest.net, for example, it's actually going from that remote user's desktop outright. So it's not actually allowing you to test the speed of your internal network. So what Allegro's done is added a feature and capability called the Allegro Speedtest. And essentially what it allows you to do, have the help desk give a URL to that end user at the remote site that's having performance problems. And then they can run by simply just clicking on a button, a speed test that's going to test the internal path from their workstation or their laptop, etc., over to the Allegro device. And in this case, I've got Allegro that's sitting behind a firewall coming in off of a WAN connection here. And it allows you to test your internal network architecture by just simply giving a URL. So here we can see on the left-hand side is the Allegro speed test, and you'll see all these different statistics. But down below, you can turn on this public access to it, copy the link, and then here I've pasted into a web browser. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to run this speed test. So this is what the end user would see. This is the URL that just points back to the Allegro multimeter that I want to run the speed test on. And then I can click start. And you can see it's going out and doing a typical upload, download speed test to my Allegro that's sitting in my data center right now. And you can see we're getting these live statistics, download and upload speeds. But what's really cool with this is that when that user completes this speed test, as an engineer, I can log into my Allegro multimeter. And let me make this full screen. And then you can see at the top, we're recording all of the different speed tests that occurred and the IP address that launched those. So what you can see here is that we've recorded all of the speed tests, upload, download speeds, as well as our ping time, as well as our jitter. And we also have a link directly to the IP address that launched that test. So if I'm an engineer and I want to troubleshoot and say, for example, this 563 megabits per second was really, really slow, I can simply click on this IP address. And what it does, it takes me directly into the Allegro. And I'll come in here and just look at the last 10 minutes and zoom in. Here is the actual data for that speed test. So here's my download speeds of, almost 600 megabits per second. And then here's my upload speeds. And what's cool about this is if I come in and I look at the connections, I can actually look at some timings from an application perspective of, how did that performance go? So we're looking at things like bits per second and directions. We're also looking at the number of transactions or turns that are here, server delay, etc., and all of the other TCP statistics, TCP window usage, uh, were there any retransmissions, any duplicate acts, etc. And then if I want to drill into this deeper, I can click on this details tab, and then down below here, it's going to show me as I scroll down here any of the retransmissions that might have occurred and in what direction were those retransmissions, along with all of the actual response time. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit deeper here, and I can see from a client perspective as well as from a server perspective what those response times were. If I want to drill into this a little bit deeper, I can click on this TCP flowchart, and what this is showing me is a graphical view of that bounce diagram. So there's my three-way handshake along with all of the response times over here in the right-hand column. And then likewise, again, if I want to drill in even deeper and get the packets, I can simply come up to the top, hit my download icon here, and I'll just look at this in WebShark, and boom, here is the actual trace file for that speed test that I just performed. So, a very quick way to analyze the bandwidth, capacity, potential issues from an end user perspective at any of your remote sites. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you on the next video.